So, in today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest. I'm here with Amy Jo Murray, and she is basically going to be leading us today through what her company is all about, what she's focusing on, and specifically, we're going to be talking about how COVID has impacted operations, but actually going a little bit beyond that, right? Because obviously, you've heard a lot of conversations on how business have been impacted, but maybe we're even going to look into what the future holds there. And as always, I'm going to be, digging hard for you guys out there to figure out, how do these companies grow? Like, what do they actually do? So, Amy, welcome to Pathmark Presents.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Maybe first and foremost, maybe introduce your company and tell us, what you guys are doing and, what you do for the company.
Sure. So our company is called Show Imaging. Our headquarters is based in San Diego, California, in the United States. And our corporate line is that we create compelling live and digital experiences through artful storytelling for audiences worldwide. To kind of break that down a little bit more, really what that means, what we do is we take people's ideas and we create unique live experiences. And our team provides project management, creative design, cutting edge technology. Basically, we are an extension of your team and we help you develop, strategize, and share your message. So we're your partners.
Very cool. Are you those guys that when you come into like, a big new event, a stadium or, an event hall, which, make the cool lightning and all that, great feeling when you're jumping in?
Yes, exactly. I love that you said we create the great feeling, 100%. And I think our team would be excited to be described that way.
Awesome. Very cool. So maybe tell us a little bit, who would be your clients? Like, how does that world work? Like, is that event management companies? Is that, who would be your clients?
Sure. Yeah, the usual suspects, like you said, corporate event planners or event planners, festival planners, but also chief marketing officers. We deal with marketing and experiential agencies a lot of the time. Other production companies will call us and bring us in if they're experiencing a challenge or they need maybe some technical innovation that they haven't done before. Our team will take that on. But we even work with city planners and universities, and we have a number of nonprofit organizations that we partner with as well. And for during COVID, one of the really fun things that we got to do was a lot of musicians and bands reached out to us and they came to us to use our studios. So we did a lot of live broadcast.
Oh, very cool. I mean, we're going to definitely talk about that a little bit on how things have changed in that scenario. And you mentioned already, actually, they came to you because typically what we love to know in the podcast is who would be the champion within those companies. Is that like a head of marketing? Is that like who holds the flag high and says we need those folks?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's not always who you think it might be. Oddly, sometimes it's the person in finance, but normally it would be, like you said, the head of marketing, the vice president of events. It could be the head of a department. So some of the people we work with, we produce conferences. So it might be a regional director or a global sales director. So it's not always the same decision maker, but it is the person that signs off on the check.
That's an interesting point, though, because we talk about growth quite a bit in the podcast, and obviously having that varying personas, let's say, or people that actually get started. How would they find you? Like, what would be a journey? Maybe if you could describe like a typical journey of somebody not knowing show imaging yet, and ultimately becoming a client. Like, what are the channels that they're working through typically?
That's a really good question. And pre-COVID and post-COVID, in some ways, it's exactly the same. In other ways, it's different. But I would say the number one way we get new clients or new customers is word of mouth. Someone will say, like you said, you walk into a room and you see this beautiful stage and great lighting and great sound, and someone says, "Who's doing this?" Oh, it's Show Imaging. So the first and foremost way would be you suggest us, you recommend us. Second, well, probably first is we've worked with you before and you've come back, but we're talking about new people. I would say, interestingly enough, our website isn't a huge way that people find us, but we're actually going through a brand refresh. So that's why I'm so interested in you and the conversations you've been having. We're really looking at that client journey and how do we find them. But like so many, people find us because they see a photograph, they see a video. It's never exactly how I think it's going to be. Like when I strategize and I put it on paper, like this is the sales process, this is how we got them. Someone will call up and say, hey, I met a guy at the grocery store who, was wearing all blacks and had a lanyard on. And I said, what do you do? And that's how I found you. So I wish I could be really much more strategic and concrete about it, but it's not that straightforward for us.
Which role does outbound play in your industry, right? We have a lot of folks on the show that, heavily lean into outbound, rather the website, like email outreach, LinkedIn outreach. Is that something that has, taking place in your industry already, or how does that look like?
That's a great question too. So outbound for us looks like Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook for the most part. And we're reevaluating that too. LinkedIn has been a big place for us to talk about our leadership and what we're doing in the industry. And for us in the live events world, our industry was cratered because of COVID-19, and it hasn't completely come back. So we were really fortunate that we were already living and working in the digital space. We were doing digital events and we were adding on the virtual experience to things that we were doing. So we were already there. We were already established in that place. So the pivot for us wasn't necessarily learning something new. The pivot for us was scaling up.
I see.
And how we put that out to the universe outbound was we would put on LinkedIn, here's what we're doing. Can we help you with this? And it was, I would say, 90% of the calls that we got were from people who they were supposed to have a live event in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they didn't have a clue what to do. Now, we might not have been the ones to provide their event services, but at least we could talk them through what they needed and what questions they should be asking. So I would say, oddly, part of our outbound became this educational conversation that we didn't even know we needed to have with people.
Interesting. A lot of customer-centric learnings there. I want to switch gears a little bit, right? Maybe just for somebody to summarize, right? If somebody has never heard about you guys, maybe if you could tell them a little bit about, the benefits of working with a company like yours, like what is the 2 or 3 things that they're taking away that it's maybe difficult to get otherwise?
I would say one of the great qualities about our company and Show Imaging is we have a lot of transparency. So we're going to be your partner before the contract's ever signed. So if you need a lot of educating, we'll spend a lot of time with you educating. And that's important, even if we don't become partners. I need you to understand what you're getting into. I would also say we're a real passionate, creative bunch, but we, part of our DNA is listening, like spending an awful lot of time being investigative reporters, asking good questions and listening to what our client or customer is asking for. Not only do they need to be heard, but we have to really clarify their goals, because oftentimes in business, you don't have the same terminology and jargon. So you say you want something and I think I'm delivering it. And I show you, oh, here you go, here's the product. And you're like, that is not at all what I wanted. So we spend an awful lot of time in the process making sure we know what it is you want.
Super interesting. You alluded a little bit already to the changes, right, that have been coming with COVID. Like, what would you consider is, with all these event types changing as well, like what would you consider currently like the, maybe the biggest challenge when it comes to bringing innovation into growth or innovation into marketing for a company like yours?
Well, again, our current biggest challenge is we don't know when everybody can be back together in one place. So we're doing a lot of scenario planning that is multi-layered. So scenario one might be this is still all digital. Scenario two might be this is a hybrid. Scenario three might be this is in person. So that's definitely been a challenge all the way around. I think that's the biggest challenge. The next challenge is we've got all this fatigue in the digital space. People are so tired of Zoom. And I apologize to my friends at Zoom. And I apologize for anybody that owns stock in Zoom. It's never going to lower. It's only going to go up. But we have to be really cognizant of the fact that it's not that people's attention spans are shorter. It's that they are so tired of not having an interaction where they're actually in the same space and leaning into the other person's energy and having a real dialogue.
Yeah.
Even in our space, we're trying to be so careful about when I'm done talking, then you can talk. So it's not as dynamic. So we're trying to solve that. We're trying to find solutions where it can be a little bit more like if we were all in the same space at the same time talking.
I see.
We don't have the answer, but we're working on it.
Yeah, no, I can see. It makes a whole lot of sense. I would love to maybe switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your personal journey as to, where it comes to, how it comes to, leading up the team. With all the content out there, and you mentioned the fatigue of Zoom calls, the fatigue maybe even of digital, overblast of information. How do you consume content? How do you educate yourself, and how do you even filter, maybe decide what not to go for? Maybe you can tell me a little bit about that.
That's interesting because I've taken a real step back from technology, and I am oddly, even though I work in this world, I am really setting a timer on how much I can consume and spending way more time offline. All my digital stuff, including my phone, don't come with me, and I go on a hike or we go to the park. Just something where we're forest bathing, getting the sun on our face, and rewiring my brain to be open to experiences that I don't just see two-dimensionally. What that's done for me is when I do get back to my computer or back to a place where, again, it's two-dimensional, I'm much more open to it. So I think that's kind of, that might be a real warm and fuzzy, but if I don't do that, at the end of the day, I'm literally a computer. I'm crunching numbers. I'm looking at these beautiful creative pieces of video and art, and I'm breaking it down into work. I'm not enjoying the cathartic experience.
Yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, to hear it for somebody like yourself who is creating even through like digital means experiences, right? Very, very cool to hear. I would have a couple of not rapid fire questions, but a couple of short and crisp questions to learn a little bit about yourself. Would that be okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's the last book that you read?
Well, currently I'm reading a book called Cast. It's by Isabel Wilkerson, and it's fantastic. I think everyone should read it.
What is it about?
It's basically breaking down racism and caste in America. Yeah. And obviously it shouldn't be a hot topic. It should be something that we've already worked through, but we haven't. We're still working and need to do a lot of work.
What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the very moment?
The one single thing. Oh gosh. I would say, again, I'm really fortunate. I work with a lot of curious people. So we have some technology initiatives that we haven't rolled out yet that we're going to be able to offer to our clients and customers that will help them deliver new online digital experiences, and even live some things when we get back to our live festivals, which we're already planning live festivals. So some of our digital technology is going to be really fun to bring to people.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you would want to have fixed for your role?
That I would want to fix for my role? Oh my goodness. Gosh. I don't know the answer to that question because I could wax on for days about that.
Very good. I mean, it's a rapid fire, so
yeah, I'm like, I don't have that answer. Whoops.
Very good. Very cool. What's the last single thing that kept you, or what's the one thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
I have to be honest, I don't really stay awake at night unless we're doing a show for, you know, Istanbul or Beijing. We work really hard to close our laptops at the end of the day and walk away.
Very good.
It might be at 10 o'clock at night, but we do it.
And if today, right, would be your very first day working on show imaging, the very first day, you're just stepping in, like, I don't, you know, maybe you can put yourself back into that first day, opening the door. What's the one advice that you would give yourself?
I would tell myself to start with the company sooner because I love the people so much. And the second thing, I'll take a quote from the musical Hamilton, Aaron Burr, smile more, talk less.
Very good. Amy, I really appreciate that you took the time with us today. And, you know, we're part of Pathmark Presents, where we learned about show imaging. And I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed today, what's, you know, one thing that they should remember about the company?
We're your partners. Whether or not you hire us today, give me a call. I can talk you through challenges that you might have, even if you are, especially if you are a first-time planner for any type of event, physical or digital. I can absolutely help you walk through the steps of what you need to do to be successful. I want to be your partner today and tomorrow, whatever that looks like.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
You're welcome.